Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome to Government Contracting Weekly. I'm Hilary Fordwich from Key Solutions. Now more than ever, we are focused on the security of our country and, of course, the incredibly critical role played by the government contracting community in keeping us all safe. Joining me today are three guests whose sole focus is our security. Let's start with a conversation I had with Andy Black, the CEO of Navanti Group. Let's take a look. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And Andy's going to tell us a little bit about his background and about the founding of Navanti, because he's the founder and CEO. So tell us about why you founded the firm and how you founded the firm.
The firm got started about 4 years ago in the research and intelligence space generally. My background is actually as an intelligence analyst and a researcher focused on counter-terrorism issues, terrorist ideology, communications, things of that nature. And we found that there was a space in the market where most firms were focused either at the strategic level or at the very tactical intelligence level, and we found that there was a gap in the market in between. There was a necessary information requirement. And so we developed the company, developed our processes, developed our technology, and really took it to market. And as you've seen over the past few years, we've had good growth, and apparently
tremendous growth.
The theory proved out for us.
It has. And when you say, so with your background, what did you do before Navanti and what did you study at school?
So I started in undergrad at the University of St. Andrews, where I studied terrorism and political violence, and I started very quickly getting contract work as an undergraduate.
That's one of the top schools, actually.
Yes, we call ourselves the Princeton of the North.
And actually it is a famous school. I'm sure many members of our audience know why it's such a famous school, and as a matter of interest, perhaps, Andy was at school with Prince William and the then Kate Middleton.
That's correct.
So any feedback our audience might like to know, any insights that you have, anything particular?
Insights, both wonderful people, both
Yes.
fantastic people, wonderful couple who understand the importance and the role that they're playing in society, as well as, frankly, very intelligent people who I think are going to make a wonderful royal couple someday.
Yeah, they say that. Great thing for the royal family.
Absolutely.
But in terms of, that's where you got a great grounding. But what was
Yes.
it that gave you the spark and the idea? How did you know this was a space that was lacking? Because a lot of people here studied the same thing you did and they didn't see that.
That's correct. To be fair, I think the market demand really was what showed me the theory was there, and that we were providing services to folks like the Department of Homeland Security and others, and we continue to get more and more requests for this type of information, this type of analysis. It was also the period where the growth of social media was really starting to take hold, and so there was more and more data, more and more opportunity to provide this kind of analysis, and we kept getting inbound phone calls, frankly.
And so really you're taking in a huge aggregated data, but you're making
Yes.
sense of it.
Yes, and that's a very important point, is that, 2007, 2008 timeframe, people talked about the information tsunami. There's an incredible amount of data out there. What are we ever going to do with all this data? Well, for us, we take an important view that it's less about the data, more about the knowledge. In other words, people pay you for the development of a decision-critical knowledge product, something that really helps them understand the issue. To be fair, I don't think many people really care that much about reporting. I think they care more about the analysis.
Yes.
And so
what do I do with this information?
I have to make a decision at some point. In the M&A market, it's about return on investment. In the government market, it's about where can I really focus my resources to achieve my mission. So there's that very much a decision that has to be derived from the data. And
then coming up, everybody says there's going to be an avalanche actually of M&A activity. So I would think your analysis for the whole M&A market is going to be pretty critical coming up.
Yes, we like to focus on the understanding of analysis and the development of very concise products. We really do. It's interesting if you ever get a chance to see our products are very short, very focused, 3 to 5 pages of analysis, and they cover from strategic to very specific, almost tactical considerations. We are able to gather social media data. We're able to gather social science data. We conduct surveys and polls and things of that nature, and it's a fusion of that cyber information with that human information, that research and polling information that really provides an incredible differentiation.
And it is a big differentiation because Andy just won the CCAF Business of the Small Business of the Award. Yeah. So congratulations on that.
Very honored about that. That's a wonderful recognition. I tell you, building a company, obviously I was very young when we started the company. the company does not grow by the efforts of the individual. It's everyone's role,
and
everyone's
the market
job.
buzz that you get and the accolades and the testimonials.
And frankly, CCAF is a great organization. It's done a wonderful job for the community, really helped small businesses like us understand our community, understand our market, understand the resources, and really contribute to that. And for them to recognize the company, you know, allows me to turn that favor around to the people that worked with me over the past several years to build the company. And it's just a great recognition, so we're very happy about it.
So kudos to everyone at Navanti. What are some of the challenges that you're facing and your market sector's facing?
This is an incredibly interesting and difficult time. We've got, you know, from a small business perspective, you know, the past 5 or 7 years have really put a credit crunch on it, so it's, sometimes it's hard to get the credit you need to actually continue to grow. In other cases, more and more competition. As we wind down certain government programs, you see, you know, competition surge in others.
Everyone's leaping into your space.
Oh my goodness, yes. Everybody suddenly is an expert in, you know, the new area of big data analytics and social media analytics and things like that. Oh, cybersecurity is another one, absolutely. And these are new growth fields, and so a lot of people are trying to get into it. And so it creates interesting distortions in the market. It creates interesting, you know, competition for resources. You know, hiring is becoming a lot harder, so it puts stress on your human capital programs.
Particularly people with clearances, which
absolutely.
I
mean, you have to get people. In our case, in particular, because of, you know, the sort of interesting position that we're in, we support both, you know, commercial requirements as well as government requirements. We support people that have language backgrounds. Also need to have a clearance at some point. You know, it's this diversity of requirements. You know, it's hard on recruiters to find, you know, the right mix of people. It's hard for managers to manage across that. And then it's also hard for the business development professionals to craft an interesting and creative solution that also resonates and satisfies the requirements of the customer. So it's
and great differentiation you need now.
Because
like
at the end of it,
how on earth are you different than everyone else?
That's exactly right. Because at the end of all of it, if you don't differentiate, you know, now more than ever, then you don't stand a chance.
Right.
And differentiation, people are going to have to figure out very clearly what their business strategy is going to be. You know, in some cases, customers need to, or companies need to decide they're either going to be a service company and they're going to compete on rates, they're going to compete on people, they're going to compete on solutions. In our case, we've focused on technology-enabled solutions. We feel as though it's the integration of people, process, and technology that allows us to do what we do.
You have a really superior solution.
Yes, and that requires, you know, mission understanding. You know, whether it's a private company talking about investment in Africa, or it's, you know, a government customer who needs to understand human terrain dynamics in a particular area. Whatever that requirement is, you really must understand that in order to craft a solution and be able to deliver that solution still at a competitive rate, because, you know, at the end of the day, budgets are budgets.
Right, and the government isn't going to say, well, you know, regardless of any kind of cost, because that's still primary in their mind. Yes.
Everybody is resource constrained, and now more than ever, people are more resource constrained than they've had to deal with before. And frankly, in our space, the requirements are much bigger than they ever were before, because, you know, there's more data to deal with. There are more areas that we're concerned with. There's larger human capital deficiencies. You know, we're a consulting firm, so knowledge arbitrage matters to us. And so as people care more about Africa, or they care about Eurasia, or, you know, the shift to Asia Pacific, you know, the demands are growing while the resources are shrinking, and it creates, as I said, these interesting distortions.
And I would think also there are great opportunities that come your way that are absolutely vast, that you know you want to go after, and now you've got to focus some energies on that as well. I mean, that's
absolutely
diluting of what you're actually doing as an incumbent.
And focus, right now in this market, focus is going to be one of the hardest things to do, because you're absolutely right. There are going to be great opportunities that come up. You know, everyone sees that $500 million opportunity, like, I really want this. But you have to be able to make the, you know, critical decision about, is this core to us, and can we actually go after this when
win with a high probability? Yeah, because in a larger contractor, they can assume, you know, if they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in missed opportunities and their time frame, it's not going to affect their business. That's going to affect you.
Exactly.
Yes.
And from our position as, you know, a small business in particular, but this is a broader issue, is, you know, as budgets get reduced and competition goes up, so rates necessarily go down, you don't have as much overhead and G&A to work with. So you really have to be very, very careful about placing your strategic bets right now.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can kill yourself.
So in other words, it's a betting man's game, and it's somebody who has a definitely courage to go into new arenas and bear that stress of, well, we're going to win this or not. Yes.
Courage is an important word right now.
And you seem like you can handle that, so yes. What is your perspective on the speed of what is required of you by the government, and then the government speed?
Well, what we enjoy about the space is that obviously it's driven by requirements. And so the national security space, they care about, you know, what's the current threat, what's the current interest of the United States. And as that's a dynamic field, a dynamic issue.
And it's become more so in the last month or so.
I was going to say, I mean, you look at Africa, for
yes.
example, is a great example over the past couple of years, or with the rise of social media back in 2009, 10, and 11. Very quickly, government requirements can shift to a new area where contractors, play a very important role, in fact. And so acquisition is a critical aspect of all of this. And so, our customers need to be able to balance, dynamic requirements with, the very rigid processes of acquisition. And it's that balance of timing that it's extremely difficult. And to a certain extent, that falls back to us as contractors.
The onus on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to balance, and rightfully so. They have government interests, they have government equities that they need to protect. We also have our commercial interests in equities, not only for competitive reasons, but also that, we really want to help. We're really eager to help. We're really eager to pitch in.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's in this space is in it because we love what we do. We believe in what we do. We believe it's a necessary service and a necessary offering to our government customers that they can accomplish what they need to. We also need to recognize that, acquisition rules are there for a darn good reason. And so we need to balance those. And so for us, the way we stay ahead of it is, we are a knowledge-driven enterprise. So a lot of, almost everybody in the entire company has some form of analytical or research background, and that helps us as a corporation understand where the next ridge line is going to be.
Right.
Where do we need to be?
And where do you look to the next ridge line? How do you get your data? How do you get your information from that BD RFP side?
Yeah, so we define our interests as much by the national security interest, because we see that as the guiding light for where acquisitions are going to be.
So you're always focused on where they're going.
Exactly. So if you look at Iraq and
today.
Afghanistan 4 or 5 years ago, most of our competitors were surging their efforts there at a time that we weren't. We focused on Africa. We knew, and it's partly because my background is as an Africa analyst, but we also recognized that Africa was a growing portfolio of the national interest, and that with the growth of AFRICOM, the growth of USAID programs in Africa, and all the rest of it, as well as commercial interests, Corporate Council on Africa, folks like that, that we saw a macro trend that the United States was going to care more about Africa. On the flip side of it, we also saw competing interests in Africa, China, Al-Qaeda,
yes.
things of that nature. State stability matters a lot. HIV and AIDS awareness really mattered a lot. President Bush's investments in Africa really spoke to that.
Yes, nobody talked about it at the time, and now actually
oh my goodness.
Finally you hear, yeah, his administration did more for AIDS than any other.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure a president has ever done more for a continent in the past 50 years. Probably since the Marshall Plan in Europe.
But
I mean,
nobody actually really would know that. No.
Yeah, I mean, the PEPFAR program is a great example of how this administration did wonderful things for a continent that it saw as our national interest. And so, coming back to what we do from a strategy perspective, we define where we are going to focus on those national level interests.
On those huge macro trends that you're seeing.
Exactly.
And then what about the actual keys to winning? Because you focused on that, you know what your strategy is. The force behind the show, most of our regular viewers know, is Key Solutions, and Key Solutions provides strategy capture and proposal support.
Yes.
So now you've got to the actual proposal in those instances. What has been some of the keys to winning for you?
Keys to winning, understand your customer. If you don't know your customer, if you don't understand your customer, don't bid.
And you're actually understanding, because you're understanding what they're looking at moving forward even further.
Exactly,
yes.
and that's part of it. It's a lot of people like to talk about customer intelligence. We like the word customer empathy better, because it's less about who knows what and who's sitting in what position, because that can change very quickly.
But it's a real concern about them.
Yes. I mean, obviously you need to speak to the needs of the individuals who are the customers, but you also need to speak to the needs of the organization.
And the needs of them, the mission, and you're in the perfect place to do that. You've done that. You've won the CCAF award. I think you're well on your way.
We hope so.
And congratulations to what you've achieved so far.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. And,
thank you.
And thank you for coming in this morning, Andy.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Andy's words were sobering indeed, but it's also reassuring to see people of his caliber who have our very best interests at heart. In that same vein, I'd like you to hear from Dennis Kelly, the President and CEO of AT Solutions. Dennis, just like Andy, is another leader who every day deals with our nation's security. After Dennis, we will hear once again from Doug Gates, a partner and head of KPMG's Global Aerospace and Defense Practice. Dennis is the CEO and President of AT Solutions, and Dennis may not go into this entire litany himself, so I'm going to take the liberty of doing so. Dennis has just won the American Business Award, the Executive of the Year.
Yes.
And you've won a number of prestigious awards recently. Tell us, for the benefit of the audience, what is it that's unique about AT Solutions and why you're winning so many awards? I mean, you're sweeping the whole gamut.
Well, I think what's unique is really our focus on the counterterrorism mission.
Which is a very narrow focus, really. You're the owner of that space.
That's correct. We're pure play in the counterterrorism space, and what that does is it really kind of coalesces our people around a strategy and a mission area that they're all very passionate about. I think our people make a huge difference. I mean, our people have spent their careers in the counterterrorism business, be it in the military or law enforcement or the intelligence community. So they're very passionate about it. And I think when you have a purpose and a focus and a very passionate team, amazing things can happen.
It's amazing, and it's also a very hot space. I mean, it's the space. I mean, counterterrorism has always been important,
right,
but now it's the hottest space probably to be in, of anything.
I think so. I think since 9/11, certainly, I think counterterrorism has been a key mission area for our government. Arguably, it's the most important thing our government does, is really protect us against terrorist threats, people who mean to do us harm. So it's a very hot space, yes.
And of the awards, I just thought our audience might be interested to know some of the awards recently. You were recognized by Real Heroes of the American Economy by Inc. magazine. That's kind of unique.
Well, I think we have been doing a lot of hiring, bringing in, again, these counterterrorism professionals.
How many employees do you have now?
We have just over 800 employees.
Now, how many of those need the highest security clearances?
A good number. I would say, 75, 80% at the highest level, and then, the balance, at lower levels, perhaps, based on their need to know and their job function. So.
And then some of the other ones were, of course, the Washington Business Journal's largest private companies. You're ranked 42 in Washington, and then also you're on the fastest growing companies, as well as the Inc. magazine list of growing companies. So in terms of that growth projection, where are you going to be and where you're going?
Well, we'd like to be at the $500 million mark in terms of revenue in the next 5 years. That's our goal. Given that we're just slightly over 200 million right now, that's a good goal for us to strive for.
It's a healthy challenge.
It's a healthy challenge. That's right. But we are very growth oriented. But more importantly, we're mission focused. And I think because counterterrorism is such an important part of what our government does, and the needs are so great, it's really a great growth market for us to participate in.
Taglines have you seen that you remember? How many taglines actually sort of really mean business and have any meat to them, any soul to them? To me, they're all prosaic at best. However, I love the word relentless in your tagline. Why don't you share with our audience, why is relentless there, and what does that mean to your employees and to you?
Well, we were looking for something to kind of distinguish us. And really, in the counterterrorism business, our adversary is ever-changing, adaptable. They're relentless, actually. They're relentless.
Yeah.
So you have to fight fire with fire, and we need to be relentless. And certainly the customers that we work with are relentless in their mission. They're real heroes in our nation. I think they're unsung heroes sometimes because they're behind the scenes. So we support them in their mission areas, and we do it in a relentless way. We're focused on the mission. We're adaptable. We're relevant, and we're relentless.
Yes. And when you say you're relentless, and of course our adversaries are relentless, are they winning? Are we winning? Who's winning?
Well, I think it's hard to say who's winning because it's such a multidimensional, asynchronous kind of war we're in here. It really is a war.
And before Boston, we might have said something else the week before. So,
yeah, I think we've made tremendous progress. I think our federal, state and local partners are talking more. I think they're sharing more information. I think they've done some amazing things. And you think about the attacks that have been thwarted. I think that's really remarkable.
Well, and actually, I think that's one of the sad things. I've always thought when you go to any of your kids' sports games or in any major sport, the goalie sort of is a thankless job because, you only really notice it when a goal goes in, and no one ever says, we won because our goalie stopped all those goals.
Right.
And all that we don't know is really what is so great. The average member of the public doesn't know. Now, you may know, but the member of the public doesn't. What would you say to people watching our show in terms of how successful we've been in the last few years? Is that just we can see the results because there hasn't been any major attack? Would you be able to speak to how many you think we have avoided?
Yeah, I think we've avoided a good number. I think some of them.
What number? What's a good number?
Well, I really couldn't say a number.
You couldn't say, yes.
But we've heard, certainly the Times Square incident.
Yes.
We've certainly heard, other incidents around the country. But I think it's the ones we don't hear about that are also equally impressive. But for security reasons, for intelligence reasons, we don't disclose that.
You don't discuss that. And you can, but you can say to our audience with all integrity that there are many threats out there that we are avoiding as a nation.
Absolutely.
And that we are really very safe.
We are much safer than we were. And I think the heroes that, you know, in our local law enforcement, our federal law enforcement, our military, our intelligence community, that's why. These people work tirelessly to keep us safe.
They are relentless.
They are
certainly
relentless.
Dennis and his firm are relentless at AC Solutions, yes. Dennis, my question to you is, how has teaming been a part of your growth? Have you used a lot of subcontractors? Is that a big part of your play, and what do you look for generally?
Well, I think teammates are very important as in the government contracting world these days. It really takes a team to win the larger, more complex proposals, and selecting your teammates is critical. You know, beyond the skills and the experience, which is important, what I look for is who's going to be a good partner, who has integrity, who can you trust? And what I always try and do is meet with the senior leader, if possible, the CEO, the president, or some senior leader in the company we're about to team with, and just size them up. Make sure that, you know, if things get rough, I can pick up the phone and call them and work through an issue.
You have a rapport together, the two of you,
Absolutely.
leading those organizations.
Very important, very important, because when, you know, things do go wrong sometimes, and you need to be able to work it as a team, because any problem can be solved.
Yes, like any relationship, you have to have the communication there.
With reasonable people.
Yes, yes,
right.
People that you can see eye to eye to. Anyway.
Exactly. Life's too short.
And then what about in terms of the future? What are you looking for? Like at the moment, for our members of our audience, they love hearing that, you know, a certain firm is looking for certain credentials. I'm assuming you're always looking for security clearances, and what else?
Well, I think we're one of the fastest growing areas of the company is forensics intelligence. So people, you know, companies or firms with skills in that area are important to us. Small businesses are key. I mean,
when you say small, how do you define small? Like,
well, the way the U.S. government defines.
Yeah,
it depends on the size standard and whatnot, but generally below 23 million in revenue.
And is that for an actual win because you'd like to be use those credentials?
Well, many contracts today require the use of small businesses. So there's small business goals, and we ourselves started out as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. So we have a passion for working with small businesses. So that's a very important part of our strategy.
And then what about for you in the future? Would you say that you'd look for, is it local, is it the geography that's important, or is it more the kind of credentials you said about the trusting people?
I think it's more the credentials, and really geography depends on the opportunity and where they might have a presence that we might need support in. A lot of them are here in the Washington, D.C. area, but there are others. You know, we have teammates in Colorado, California, really all over the country, depending on the opportunity.
Great. The world has changed so much, not to denigrate our age or anything, but since you graduated from college and got your master's degree, if you had known something then that would have been helpful in this particular space, what would it have been?
Well, I think for me it would be know what you do well and really focus on that. I think companies sometimes try to be all things to all people, and I think they can lose focus on what it is their mission is. So our mission is a very focused mission, as we've talked about in counterterrorism, and it's something that this is the first experience I've had in the business world where my focus has been that laser focused on a mission area.
And that must be very, very good for all your people. Very good for the mission of the firm.
It is. It's good for the team, it's good for morale, it's good for our customers, and really incredible things happen when you have a very focused approach.
And you know, many of our regular viewers will know that the force behind the show is Key Solutions, and Key Solutions provides strategy capture and proposal support to help win contracts. So we're always looking for the keys to winning. For you at AT Solutions, what would you have said is apart from, obviously, as you mentioned, being focused, and you have great people, anything else you would have said have been some of your keys to winning?
Well, I think having a plan, and we have a strategic plan that is succinct. It's 25 pages long, and we measure our progress against that plan every month, and our team is really behind that plan. So that gives us a direction and a purpose, and it's really been powerful for us.
That's really important.
Yes.
Well, great. Thank you so much for coming in this morning, Dennis.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm delighted to have with me Doug Gates, the lead partner from KPMG's Aerospace and Defense practice. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Hillary. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here. Doug has tremendous expertise in his technical skills, but also in his new global role. And I'd love for you to share with our audience some content about supply chain. What sort of percentage of the cost of any contract is usually given to other companies in that whole supply chain bid?
It can vary, but oftentimes 30 to 45%.
Okay.
In some cases at a product level, say for instance on a large weapon system, it could even rise as high as 60 to 65%. So it's a huge portion of an OEM's business is the overall supply chain content.
And what sort of skills, offerings, assets should a firm bring to help that win when they're part of that?
It's a great question. The OEMs are really motivated right now to drive affordability on their current products, and they're looking for really new ideas.
That's what the government wants too, because everybody wants it, and the taxpayer wants that.
It's got to create a win-win. In what we see some pressures though is that requires an investment of the suppliers, and in many cases that investment is difficult. They've been under 3 or 4 years of pressure to perform, if you will, and cost and cash have been difficult to come by.
Squeezed out anyway.
Very, very much. And so we're seeing that they want to perform to that, but if they have to do it on their own nickel, it becomes very difficult. So in some cases on the defense side, we're seeing that the OEMs, really the large contractors, are really going to have to operate more like in the commercial space, where they're bringing them on as risk partners. They're sharing the cost of that development, and they're really bringing it forward to the government jointly versus expecting the entire risk to be borne by the supply chain.
Oh, that's good. So it's actually beneficial to be worked together like that. Yeah.
It has proven so on the commercial side. Granted, that's definitely on the incline, but I think in the defense side, you have to go that route. The other thing we're seeing is that many of the suppliers are really now under so much pressure. We're going to see a wave of consolidation at the kind of tier 2 through 4 level in the supply chain, and it's something we've seen the first edges of, but I'd expect in the next 2 to 3 years to see a lot of that consolidation to allow them really to get synergy and marshal that cash to become a greater contributor for the contractors.
So they're more competitive all around.
All around,
yeah, and
exactly.
it helps the end bid be more competitive too for the government.
Exactly, and it gives the large government contractors that safeguard that they know there's an entity there with enough viability, so that when they turn to them, a year from now or 5 years from now, they're there and they've got some longevity.
They've gone through that, yeah.
That's correct.
Great advice, great insights. Thank you very much, Doug.
You're welcome.
The challenges facing our country in the area of national security are substantial, and they grow in complexity every day. It's good to know that we have some of the best minds and the best companies so focused on this most important of all issues. Our thanks goes out to Andy Black of the Navanti Group, Dennis Kelly of AT Solutions, and Doug Gates from KPMG. Our thanks also go out to you, our viewers, for making Government Contracting Weekly a regular part of your learning routine. See you next week.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.